Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed. Got that sunshine on my Sunday best. Yeah, hey, every day can be a better day despite the challenge. All you gotta do is leave it better than you found it. It's gonna get difficult to stand, but hold your balance. I just say whatever, cause there is no way you're round it. Cause everyone falls down sometime, but you just gotta know it'll all be fine. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed. Got that sunshine on my Sunday best. Hey, some days you wake up and nothing works, you feel surrounded. Gotta give your feet some gravity to get you grounded. Keep good things inside your ears just like the waves and sound it. And just say whatever, cause there is no way you're grounded. Everyone falls down sometime, but you just gotta know it'll all be fine. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Hey, feeling good, like I should. When in dark, walk around the neighborhood. Feeling blessed, never stressed.
Awesome. Okay, I think we can get started. Thank you everyone for being here. I'm super excited to kick this off. I think this is a great way for us to connect while we're still over Zoom and learn from each other. And thank you everyone who's reached out who wants to participate. I would love to get people scheduled and continue to do this. We have an awesome speaker today, and I'm super excited to learn from him. So I will go ahead and hand it over to Das.
Thank you, Haley. Thanks everyone for joining. This is fun. This is a great opportunity, and I'm privileged to be the first one to kick this off. And I look forward to learning from all my other speaker colleagues. So Haley gave me a good guidance on what we should be doing in this session. So she gave me a few questions. Tell us about yourself. What is it that you do at Saatchi? Can you tell us a bit more about how we go after new business, right? And what are the day-to-day duties of a chief data officer? So I have a few pages that I'm going to walk you through real quick, and then we'll open it up for questions so that I could address more of what's on top of your mind, right? So real quick introduction of myself, although this has been done before, but I thought, since you asked, I was born and raised in India, moved to US as a young graduate student in 1990, did my master's in statistics in SUNY Buffalo, a very cold place, a big move from 120 degrees to minus 60 degrees. And, covered in snow, which was the first time I saw in my life. I did not see snow before I was 22. There we go, I gave my age away. And then I did my, PhD in Penn State University, another very cold place. I was there for 5 years, did dual PhD in operations research and in management science, one from School of Engineering and one from School of Business. So it gave me a kind of rounded approach to how data science and data applies in real world as opposed to the theoretical world. And my trained skill set is data science. But I'm equally, if not more, passionate about creativity in many forms. Starting with literature, I write poetry. I've been published widely in India in Bengali language. I publish a journal, co-edited, which is all about literature, essays and poetry and stories. I play and listen to music. I play the tabla drums, trained classically, play in concerts as well. And I act on stage almost regularly, pre-pandemic, one production a year. I've been in the main roles of about 30 plays, in the last 20 years. And that's what summarizes me as a person, really. And, from a career perspective, I've had a long consulting career in a series of boutique and large firms, culminating eventually in Ernst & Young, where I was a partner, and McKinsey, where I was an associate partner. And then I went to the driver's seat, where I was no longer telling people what to do, but I was responsible for doing it myself, which was my role at Amazon, which was a phenomenal experience that I learned a lot from. It was called Amazon Customer Experience System, ACES, for all of North America across 130 buildings that are fulfillment centers that do everything they can from the moment you click on that order until it is received in your door, using data science and a lot of automation and a lot of actual hands-on problem solving in this, right there in the fulfillment centers. And then I went to Viacom, the media company that Saatchi partners with and Toyota partners with, and I was there responsible for coming up with algorithms on how to sell ads to you guys. And then Saatchi reached out to me and asked me how to buy ads and how to be able to inform that decision with numbers and what could we do together. So I'm going to be going there pretty quickly. I'm also the co-chair of analytics at ANA, which gives me a huge privilege to know about what the entire industry is doing with data and analytics. I also sit on 3 advisory boards, O9 Solutions, Exeast.com, and Scan.ai. Any company that ends with an AI stands for artificial intelligence. And then I'm also an adjunct professor of data science at USC Marshall School of Business. And I know a lot of our friends in Toyota as well as in Saatchi, they have been to Marshall. It's a great place to be in. And I keep learning from my students and my colleagues. That keeps me honest. So that's the reason on Saturday mornings, I'm busy teaching data science at Marshall. So that's who I am and what I do at Saatchi. Then I will address the next question. So next slide, please, Claire. New business was a question that came from you. As a consulting partner, I am trained and experienced in developing new business with a solutions and delivery approach, which is a little different from pure sales. Pure sales will go and literally get people from RFPs and from their relationships and bring them to the table to have a conversation. And then I was typically brought in to say, what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and then how we will solve it, and then deliver it. Typical funnels for us are our network referrals and professional public relations. I do a lot of professional, non-professional public relations speaking. Such as in LinkedIn, you may find that I have been asked to do fireside chats in some conferences that really allows us to show what we can do to a lot of people out there. Sometimes they will reach out to me and ping me and say, can you help? And the group also hands us some opportunities. And as you may know, the Saatchi leadership is already working on, and we have a new business presentation that Jason, Mark, and Chuck have developed. We are using that. And we have been testing and learning and developing a sales muscle with Bear, for example, O9 Solutions, Travelocity, and a few others. But we do need to invest in this area to build a dedicated team and a strong sales funnel. Next slide. Now I'll go into what do I do? Because people hear about CDO and they think, what is that, right? So I borrowed a few slides from my, friends in Gartner, which is a big consulting company in the technology space. They make recommendations on how organizations should change and organizations should actually invest in data and the CDO. So I have a few pages that I'm going to quickly walk you through. So a CDO, sometimes also called a chief analytics officer or chief data analytics officer, and then also called chief data analytics and digital officer. So all of a sudden you got CDAD in there, right? So, they are leaders enabling culture change. And that's important. to create a data-driven organization. And it is so timely that as Saatchi invested in Project Next, the Saatchi leadership wanted to consider data at the center, which we are discussing. Let's call it intelligence at the center, because data is not always about numbers. It could be even qualitative observations of an exploratory meeting that we are listening to, and that's information for us, and that's intelligence for us. How could we feed it back to our friends in strategy and creative so that they can do their magic with it? That's the purpose of that kind of a process. Next slide, please. And the formal definition of a CDO that is accepted by the industry, right, is that a CDO is responsible for transforming data assets into competitive insights that will drive business decisions and actions using people, processes, and technologies. Next slide. So here is a image that shows you what my role is, right? So you have data scientists on the one hand, the guy on the left-hand side playing cello, and data architect, and then there's data quality, and then there's data operations, and then there's data governance. All those tasks, it's kind of orchestrated by the CDO, okay? And next slide, please. And in particular, people talk about data science a lot. What is it? It is the process of taking raw data. For example, we're going to get clinic data in numbers based on a clinic that has recently happened next week. We can't wait to get that because we are data hungry. It's going to give us respondent level data for like maybe, let's say 50 participants who have answered questions on what they like about a car, what they like about our Toyota car, what they liked about the competition, what they did not like, so that we can see kind of what kind of people like which kind of cars, and we could start putting together some distances among them, and we cleave them out and we say, okay, these guys are sports enthusiasts in this age range, and they may like this particular build, or these guys over here are more on the inspirational side. They would like to be inspired by something. So all of a sudden that message goes to, let's say, Turner's team, and the strategy team does something with it, and then Jason's team will take that, and then they will come up with their magic of how to create advertisements that are different for these two types of people. One would be inspirational, the other one may have product features and functions there. So that's the kind of thing that we do in the upfront part of the planning process of a campaign development, CDP, right? So, so we take that raw data, we guide actions that will bring financial benefits to business, okay? Hopefully, Toyota will see more sales based on that. It's hard to measure, by the way, so I warn you, do not always go for an inspirational ad and think, how's it gonna drive sales? Upstream was a phenomenal ad that we all have seen in Super Bowl. Is it gonna drive sales right now? Well, not really. That's not the intent of it. The intent of it is to create an emotion that is long-lasting and lingering in people's minds, so that years down the road, they may still think of Toyota as something that really inspires them. And that's a different intent than, let's say, you are in a sales event, or you're looking at an in-market campaign, and how would you motivate them to take that next step? Those are also things that we measure with data. So let's move on to the next one. So this is a profession that is becoming very common in corporations. In the last 10 years, the number of CDOs have gone exponentially higher in organizations. And that's because, even 10 years ago, even if you had data, there was no technology to be able to harness that kind of huge data sets and run the computer programs and get the insights. The methodology was there from a mathematical standpoint, but that does not mean that the computers were able to kind of massage all that. Now we are there today, and all of a sudden, this is a corporate role who is the business leader for enterprise-wide data processing and data mining, which is also a technical term. We're looking for a diamond in the rough. By mining, that's exactly what we're doing, right? The CDO typically in all organizations, and this is again coming from Gartner, reports to the CEO, or sometimes in very large organizations, a COO may be responsible for it and is the member of the executive management team of a company or business unit. They leverage their organization's data assets to support the business strategy. They manage an enterprise-wide data administration and is the champion of enterprise information management. So let's go to the next one. So just a real quick list of things that fall under the purview of a CDO, although not all of them are done by us. Some of them are taken care of by Publicis, our partners in that space. But strategy, analytics, insights, data architecture, which means how am I going to get data from all these different sources? Who is going to feed whom? How is it going to come on a platform? How are we going to visualize it? And what kind of analysis we're going to run so we can get insights that are actionable. If an insight is not actionable for a data team, it is not really worth pursuing. What do I do with this data? Right? I had to do something with it, right? And then data governance, quality, acquisition. Sometimes, companies just go and acquire new sets of data. Data operations, policies, security, protection. A lot of these are foundational to the data team and CDO as a role. To the next one. And, from a CDO office perspective, this is my last slide before I go into what we are doing for Toyota, the 10 commandments of a CDO. So trusted foundation, right? I talked about that. Strong partnership with multiple teams, and that includes IT, security, risk, compliance, and legal, as well as we are going through, as Al and Mark and Lisco and we go into weekly meetings, right? Building a strong partnership, understanding how data is going to be helping them make their decision, and then how data is going to be helping Toyota make their decisions, right? And then we also need to increase the data literacy. What that literally means is when you're looking at a slide, and if there are graphs and charts and pictures and numbers there, how to read that. What does it tell you that you would be taking away with you? Scaling the data analytics capabilities. When you see that, abbreviation AI/ML, which I know a lot of you have been seeing these days in the newspapers and whatnot, it starts for artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's a technical term of, which is a body of knowledge that allows us to kind of learn from what people are doing in the internet, in the mobile, in this whole digital ecosystem, and then take that data to be able to predict what will happen next, okay? And so think about campaigns where we have launched something and we are seeing how people are reacting to them in social media, in search, in website. Are they configuring a car? What's the probability that this person who has configured a car to this extent is most likely to convert into an actual buyer, right? So those are the kinds of mathematical models that we use to kind of make sure that all this data is actionable for us. We also focus on delivering data and analytics activities that upfront will make or save money to the company. We use product management as a discipline. Sometimes we will take a lot of the work that we do and productize it so that it can be done repeatedly. We are very serious about embracing diversity of people and ideas. We are strongly committed to it. We explore creativity and pursue innovation. And again, these are not words I typed up here. This is industry-wide 10 commandments that I'm sharing with you. So you see that a data team comes embedded with this DNA. And be relentless, always continually improving or seeking improvement in everything that we do. So real quick, time check. We are at 11:20. Haley, should I wait, kind of pause now, or should I go through a couple more slides talking about what we are doing at Toyota? What do you think?
We can go ahead and go into Toyota, and then if we have a little bit of time at the end, we can start answering questions.
Okay, great. Awesome. So the next page, please. So we are calling this Moneyball for Toyota marketing, and Mike Tripp said, "You had me at Moneyball." He loved it. And we presented to him and Tony last week on what we are doing in terms of proposing how we will be tracking campaigns and analytics, and when should we look at a campaign to think about potential optimization of either the creative or the media and that sort of thing. And we have a strong point of view that we are developing with them, right? So this is an eye chart. I'm not going to read through any of this, but this is just to give you an idea that the red dots on the top are all the Toyota stakeholders that we work with. And the gray dots in the bottom are all the Saatchi Publicis ecosystem, T-Square ecosystem that we are working with, so that everywhere we get data, we are trying to analyze and understand it and share it with all these stakeholders so that each of them are armed with the best practices and they can make decisions based on it. And we heavily partner with the TM&A business analytics team, which is now expanding in power and scope a lot. Although, you know, their titles are not at that level, but the impact they have is incredible. That has gone all the way up to Dave Christ, and he's like, that's where we are investing a lot. So good thing that you guys are partnered together. They see us as an extension of them, and likewise, we see them as an extension of us. That's why it's all in the center, you know, lumped up as TM&A business analytics and Saatchi analytics as a team together. Next one. So one of my longer term missions is to build the competency of, you know, the data teams to be able to move from just reporting, which used to be like rear view window. You're looking at what happened in that campaign, but how do we take that learning to talk about what will happen, which is predictive. If we choose this media with this creative, will we be at a better place? And then once we know a lot of that, we will start making prescriptions. Hey, you know what? We should be looking at this creative with this media combination. Maybe we should target these people because it shows, our data shows that they're going to be really working well for our. We just had a meeting this morning where Mark and I and Don and, you know, my team and the strategy team, we were looking at 860B. We were thinking, okay, at this level where we do not have respondent level data, all we have is like databases that talk about people's aspirations, likes and wants and needs and their spend and their household income, and who would be the likely target for that kind of a campaign. So those are the decisions that we make together using some of the tools that have been listed there. And the slides will be available for any of you who want to deep dive into this a little bit and reach out to me. Next one, please. So this is the example that we were talking about. We do segmentation of all the audiences that we want to reach out to that would be very pertinent to a particular type of campaign. Like, for example, go to market, you know, 3.0. How are we thinking about going to market with that particular car, with which kind of audience that would be a good mix? And then we target them, and then we actually position or actually message them what seems to be the white space that they should be going after. For example, if someone said that I actually would like to have a truck that has a larger bed, and they did not know that Toyota's next one is coming up with that, we will say that in that messaging in the digital ecosystem, which is very more, you know, much more targeted than a spray and pray kind of a wide, large volume level, campaign. So move on to the next one, please. So this is another thing that we are doing. We are correlating our people coming to the website using Google Analytics. We are saying, could we do something that's a, sort of a dynamic creative optimization, knowing who that person sort of is, not really knowing who that person's, name and anything else, but what their activities have been. And does that sort of correlate with sales proxy? A proxy could be someone who's configuring a car. Could we actually serve a creative that is very close to their needs and wants and desires from a particular type of a vehicle, so that they don't feel annoyed, they feel like they should click through that, right? So that's another mathematical model, machine learning model that we use for that. Okay, the next one. And finally, data at the center is also tasked with putting together a knowledge center that has artificial intelligence in it. The coolest thing there is that it's not like Box. You're going to be actually having a UI where you will type something, and the collected knowledge of the agency based on all the search and all the processes that the system actually learns from will be provided to you with a lot more relevance, so that you can go and leverage what has been already done in the past. And this is where data and artificial intelligence will work together to create an experience for you to centralize knowledge and make it very accessible and relevant to our employees. The one last word I will say about the predicament of data is that it's about democratization of information, making it available to everybody so that they can use it for their decision making. Okay, so I'll stop there and let you guys ask any question and answer them. So I see one question.
Yeah.
Share your experience working with ethicists. Okay, so I'm assuming that this is about ethics in data. So one of the great things that I've seen actually in Viacom is that one of my data science teams worked with a couple vendors to create an app that allows people to share any potential suicide attempts happening in all boroughs of New York based on activities that it can predict. And then it was immediately making it available to the police and the ambulance, and also showering support to that person to stop them. It actually worked. So, whether that, ethics becomes a question there, we worked with the police department to say, and they said, absolutely help us with that. And we will be super happy to help you, and provide you the support because you're doing nothing but good. So now the data ethics question becomes interesting when you're being served an ad versus when you're actually protecting people from suicide. So those kinds of moral valuations are something that we absolutely have to do all the time. What are your favorite and least favorite parts of my job? The leadership team recently went through an assessment which is called Emergenetics. And it shows how everyone scores across certain elements of a job, whether they are conceptual, right? Whether they are analytical, whether they're social, whether they are structured, in the sense that they like to follow guidelines and rules and etc. So I scored quite high on analytics, which people would expect me to. People did not quite always expect, or do not typically always expect or associate a data person with high social and social skills. I scored super high on that. And that's because, like I said, I actually enjoy working with people and interacting with them and socializing with them and really getting to know them as a person. And then conceptually, I also scored quite high. What I scored third after two of our leaders, Chuck and Michael, is on the structured side, which is the repetitive manual task of doing, I would rely on people who can do that really well and count on them. For example, I used to have 6 o'clock, Pacific time calls in my past job in the morning, going through a project where the project manager would go line item by line item on what has been done and what has not been done. And I used to attend there for moral support, but I was not really there because my mind was completely somewhere else, going into what's the next big thing I'm going to be doing. So I don't like that part of my job where it is actually, sometimes I have to go into those line by line details. But the best part of my job is to be able to imagine how we could do some great things together, only if we work together, right? That's a favorite part of my job. Tara's question, does the predictive prescriptive data inform how Toyota designed their vehicles, the focus point of our ads for model, style of our ads for a model, etc.? So interesting question. Designing their vehicles is not a bridge that we have been able to build yet. I'm pretty sure that Toyota has its own mechanisms, but absolutely we can, because if we look at some of the exploratory meetings, I've been actually hanging out in those, calls or exploratory sessions where I've been, observing people. I'll tell you one example. Last week, I was in a 780B, and this lady in it was a 660B. This lady in Atlanta, she was asked, "Why do you drive such a large truck?" And she said, "Because I feel like a lion in the jungle." I'm like, this is data for me, because, if I have that and if I can pass that back to Toyota, well, that should be the way, they should be thinking about the vehicle. But more importantly, if I pass that to Mark and Jason, they can take that and do something with it, right? Because that's data for me. Feeling like a lion in the jungle, so that nobody screws with you if you drive a truck like that. That's what the message was, right? So that's also data for us. But yeah, we definitely make recommendation. Well, we actually develop the ads to be able to target people who are looking for those features and functions, or that feeling, or that unmet need in a vehicle, so that they feel compelled to actually take an action on that. Anyone else with any questions? Consumer needs? Yes, go ahead, Ross. Yes, go ahead.
That was a shocker to me, but the creative outlet aspect of your personality. How long have you been involved in that? How did you get involved? Is that even before your career, or is that just you?
I was raised in my parents were professors of literature, so it was already there in the environment that I was growing up in. Every Sunday morning, I take 2-hour-long Shakespeare classes now from a friend who's a professor of English literature now, because I really want to get into that and learn and see how much impact those classics have in our life. But I grew up in that environment. I grew up getting trained in music. I grew up getting trained in acting.
Cool. That is so cool.
Thank you, Ross.
You're welcome. I think we have one more question actually in the chats this time.
Okay. All right. How do you define consumer needs? I hear measurements of analytics, but where are the behavioral insights coming from outside of what people say they like? Yes. So Carlos, that's what we have been actually working on as we talk to Innovid and Facebook and some of these other vendors. They're telling us, instead of, or in addition to people telling us what they want, we will tell you how they behave, because that's truer than what they may be self-reporting. So if a person has clicked a like on a Facebook where they are talking about a certain issue, and if that is related or highly correlated with a certain types of persona, which is highly correlated with a certain types of car buy, then we can now get that data to understand what their unmet needs and their desires and aspirations and lifestyles and work areas are, so that we can prepare our messaging for them. So absolutely, that's what we are working on. And I also look at another comment. I look forward to data to help our clients be brave and do things they have not done before. Absolutely, we are having those conversations with starting from Lisa, all the way to, through Mike Tripp and Tony. Tony has been super supportive of data. He has said, go ahead, do what you need. Before him, he used to report to Vinay. Vinay was super supportive of data and the investment that they're making in analytics themselves. We are having those conversations that let's get you guys to embrace it as much as we do. And we are seeing some positive momentum on that as well.
Awesome.
Right. Great.
This was incredible. We had so many comments about how awesome you are and how helpful this was. So this was amazing. Thank you so much for putting this together and answering all our questions. I know we're a little bit over time, but thank you everyone for joining. We have Chuck on the 30th, so be sure to mark your calendars for that. An invite will come out probably mid next week, so look out for that. And Das, thank you again. This was
absolutely, it was a pleasure and honor.
Awesome. Thanks everyone.